The autumn of 1888 plunged the dark, gas-lit alleys of Whitechapel, London, into an era of unprecedented fear and savagery. This impoverished district, already rife with destitution, overcrowding, and desperation, became the hunting ground for the world's most infamous unidentified serial killer, Jack the Ripper. The victims were exclusively female street workers, targeted in the dead of night, and their murders were characterized by an escalating, brutal pattern of throat-slitting and severe abdominal mutilation. This sudden eruption of barbaric violence, seemingly committed by a single elusive figure, not only terrified the residents of East London, but also ignited a global media frenzy, setting the standard for the modern concept of the anonymous serial killer, and launching an investigation that would redefine police procedure and obsession for the next century and beyond. The terror began in earnest with the murder of Marianne Nichols on August 31st, followed shortly by Annie Chapman on September 8th. Both victims were found with their throats viciously cut and their abdomens brutally sliced open, suggesting an escalating confidence and surgical precision on the part of the perpetrator. The attacks were quick, silent, and committed in public yet secluded areas, alleyways, courtyards, and shadowed doorways, indicating a killer with an intimate knowledge of Whitechapel's labyrinthine geography and the ability to disappear instantly back into the district's dense population. The nature of the cuts immediately suggested the killer possessed some degree of anatomical knowledge, fueling the popular speculation that he was a doctor, a butcher, or someone with medical training. The pinnacle of the Ripper savagery occurred on the night of September 30th, 1888, with the murders of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes, the double event. Stride was killed first, but the killer was apparently interrupted before he could perform the customary mutilations. Less than an hour later, Eddowes was brutally attacked in Mitre Square, where the mutilations were exceptionally severe, including the removal of one kidney and part of her uterus. The brazenness of the double murder, committed within minutes of each other, demonstrated the killer's terrifying psychological control and his utter disregard for the massive police presence that was by then flooding the district, mocking the entire police force's effort to contain the panic. The Eddowes murder provided the only physical clue left by the killer. A piece of the victim's blood-stained apron was found later that night near a tenement in Goulston Street. Scrawled above the piece of apron, allegedly written in chalk, was a cryptic message: "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." This sentence immediately sparked controversy, fearing it would incite anti-Semitic riots in the already volatile neighborhood. A high-ranking police official ordered the writing to be washed away before it could be properly photographed, an error that remains one of the most significant and frustrating blunders of the entire investigation, potentially destroying the only direct message left by the killer at a crime scene. The identity of the killer became permanently linked to the media through a series of taunting letters. The first and most famous was the Dear Boss letter, signed Jack the Ripper. This letter, sent to the Central News Agency, introduced the infamous pseudonym that would be immortalized in history. A second letter, the Saucy Jackie postcard, arrived shortly thereafter. While police were always divided on the authenticity of these letters, believing many were hoaxes perpetrated by journalists seeking to drive circulation, the name Jack the Ripper stuck, transforming the nameless killer into a legendary theatrical figure, a true monster of the Victorian era. The final victim of the canonical five was Mary Jane Kelly, murdered on November 9, 1888. This crime was the most horrifying of all. Unlike the previous victims, Kelly was murdered indoors in her own rented room, affording the killer hours of undisturbed time. The scene inside her room was described as grotesque, with the body extensively and meticulously mutilated. The sheer escalation of violence demonstrated by this final murder suggested a killer whose psychological need for sadism and control was reaching a terrifying peak, leaving police to fear what further horrors he might unleash. The investigation involved Scotland Yard, the City of London Police, and hundreds of local constables. Over 2,000 lodgers were questioned, 80,000 handbills were distributed, and more than 300 suspects were formally investigated. The police struggled immensely with the limitations of 19th century forensics. Fingerprinting was in its infancy, DNA technology was not existent, and even simple photography was difficult in the dark alleys. The lack of reliable eyewitness accounts, often contradicted or influenced by panic in media, meant the investigators were largely working in the dark, chasing shadows and rumors rather than definitive physical evidence. The suspects over the years have included almost every walk of Victorian life, from royalty to foreign sailors. Prominent theories focus on Prince Albert Victor, Duke of Clarence, who was historically dismissed. Various doctors, including Dr. Francis Tumblety, who was seen as a viable suspect by a police inspector, and George Chapman, Severin Kozlowski, a Polish serial poisoner. The sheer number of plausible yet unproven suspects highlights the complexity of the case and the enduring lack of a conclusive answer in the official records. The most widely accepted modern theory, bolstered by DNA evidence, points towards Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jewish barber and asylum patient who was identified as a suspect by police at the time. A shawl found near Catherine Eddowes' body was subjected to mitochondrial DNA testing in 2014, and the results claimed to definitively match a living relative of Kosminski. However, these DNA findings have been heavily debated and scrutinized by forensic experts who point to issues with contamination and methodology, meaning even this scientific lead has failed to provide the final, unquestionable closure the world desires. The historical context of the murders is key to understanding the terror. Whitechapel was a district where the poor, particularly women struggling to survive, were utterly marginalized. He preyed on the invisible, those society had already chosen to ignore, and his freedom was ironically facilitated by the very chaos and overpopulation of the city. The darkness of the era, both literal and metaphorical, provided the perfect cover for his horrific acts, making him a specter born of social neglect and urban decay. The enduring legacy of Jack the Ripper is not just the murders themselves, but the mythology they created. He is the blueprint for the modern serial killer, a figure who operates outside societal norms and actively engages with the public narrative. His unsolved nature has led to countless books, films, and documentaries, ensuring his name remains synonymous with pure historical horror. The world's fascination is rooted in the human need to confront and name the darkest evils, a need that this case has perpetually frustrated. The investigation, which officially lasted for several years, slowly dissolved into a series of cold files and frustrated confessions from various inspectors. The consensus among the original police was that the killer either died, was incarcerated for another crime, or fled the country. His abrupt cessation of the killings after Mary Jane Kelly suggested his actions were either cut short or his internal compulsion was temporarily satisfied by the extreme level of violence he achieved in the final murder. The unsolved status of the Jack the Ripper case has made it a symbol of historical forensic failure and the triumph of the killer's cunning over the Victorian police force. Every piece of clothing, every cryptic note, and every historical detail has been dissected repeatedly by ripperologists worldwide, each hoping to find the one piece of evidence that was missed in 1888, the final piece that names the monster. The final terrifying truth is that Jack the Ripper achieved his ultimate goal. He remains anonymous, a disembodied horror whose name lives on as the quintessential villain of true crime. proving that some secrets are buried so deep in history that they may never be uncovered. To this day, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains the world's most debated unsolved mystery.